Well, south of the border, our American cousins have come out of their divisive, hard-fought presidential campaign much the way they entered it. Barack Obama is still in the White House, and the Congress is split between the two parties. In short, nothing changed. So what does that say about American politics and its ability to deal with major issues like the debt ceiling and the fiscal cliff? Well, joining me to discuss this is Stephen Hess of the Brookings Institution, who served 4 presidents, Eisenhower, Nixon, Ford, and Carter, and he is one of the foremost authorities on the presidency. And Stephen, good to have you on the show again.
Thank you, Tom.
I wanted to ask you to cast your eyes back on what we've seen in the past year. You have been a little bit critical of this election process, this cycle. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, as you point out, I didn't start on Lincoln's staff, but I did start on Eisenhower. So I've been here a very long time. I've seen a lot of elections come and go, and I would put this in a class of among the most dreadful. In some ways, perhaps the most dreadful, because indeed it raised and spent the most amount of money, produced the most advertising, and produced the most untruths and distortions as well. So it clearly was not democracy's finest hour. I'm very happy to be past it.
Stephen, what creates that, though? What creates that dreadful election cycle that we just saw?
Well, a number of things. I think actually we created, and I'm proud to be part of it, a system of public financing for presidential elections. The first one who had that opportunity was Jimmy Carter in 1976. So in a sense, we were on the right track. And actually, it was Obama 4 years ago who said, oh, no, I'm not going to take public money. I can raise more myself. And since then, they all are doing that or will do it. Then the Supreme Court came along and said, oh, corporations and so forth, they're just like people. So they have the same freedom of speech. So we'll let them raise all their money anonymously as well. So suddenly we were awash in money. And I think combined with the fact that we are basically a 50-50 country, which means that we don't know who's going to win, and there's a lot of tension, and the parties are significantly different, which we used to think was a very good thing. But now, since it doesn't bring compromise, we're starting to wonder about that. I think the next few months to see whether the president feels he has a mandate, the country feels he has a mandate, and we can move forward is going to be very significant, going to tell us a lot.
Well, and that's one of the things. I mean, for all that money that was spent, as you pointed out, nothing changed after $2 or $6 billion. But that also means that the gridlock that we saw in American politics in the last 2 years presumably is going to continue. But good heavens, we've got the fiscal cliff, which could drag everybody, including Canada, back into recession. You've got the debt ceiling. What is your sense of the political mood in the country now? I know you just touched on it, but do you think that, you know, as they say, there's nothing like a hanging at dawn to focus the mind? Is there a hanging about to happen here?
Well, they're all doing happy talk, as they always do, for the first day or two after an election. And then they get back to the realities, in part in the House of Representatives, where each representative feels that he or she also has a mandate. And particularly when they have Tea Party people breathing down their neck, we will see the degree of compromise that they're willing. My own view, to cut to my final line, is that it is a system in which we do all the shouting until about a minute before midnight, and then agree. And maybe I'm an old-fashioned optimist. I do think that's apt to happen again this time, in part, particularly this time, because the minute after midnight, the consequences are so grim.
Stephen, one of the interesting things coming out of this is that on paper, this should have been an easy election for the Republicans to win, considering what the economic numbers were. Not only did they lose, but at least in the Electoral College, they lost badly. What is the lesson out of this for the Republicans or the conservative movement in the United States?
Well, one would like to think that there were lessons. You could twist this several ways. And, partly the Obama victory came because the fundamentals started to change. The economy started to pick up, and that's really what it was all about. Part also is that the president was lucky. We had that horrible storm along the eastern seaboard right before the election, which gave him an opportunity to be very presidential, where all Mr. Romney could do was contribute to the Red Cross or something. We had an extensive primary campaign in the Republicans that pushed Romney way to the right. And so it was very hard for him to scoot back to the center where you want to be if you want to win an election. And that particularly was troubling when he had to challenge the governor of Texas, Mr. Perry, and come out to his right on the question of immigration. Perry from Texas was fairly liberal on immigration for a Republican. So suddenly he was totally antagonizing the largest growing minority group, a group that ultimately probably made a difference in 3 states in this election. And then fourthly, Mr. Romney was not an ideal candidate in many respects. So what lessons do they draw? It depends on who they are, that they just need a better candidate, that they better get in line with Hispanics again, as George W. Bush wanted them to do, or that they're simply out of kilter with where the American people are.
Stephen Hess, always such a delight having you on this show. Thank you so much. And I want to point out to the audience that you, an American, are wearing a Canadian poppy, and for that I thank you.
I wear it with pride.
Thanks so much.